All right, everyone. I assume you guys are all familiar with Pete Buttigieg. I assume most of you became familiar with him during the primaries before the 2020 election, but now he is in charge of, I believe, the Department of Transportation now, and he does a pretty good job at it. He does a pretty good job at his job, from what I hear. Outside of like right-wing propaganda bullshit. And he's also seemingly a pretty good guy. His background is very solid. His speaking appearances are really good. His positions seem to be pretty solid. And overall, I've been impressed by most of his appearances he's had on television, especially as of late. And he's being looked at right now as a very possible contender as Kamala Harris's VP pick for her run. So I think it's worth taking a look at something that happened a few days ago that has gone semi-viral, which is Pete Buttigieg going on Fox News and, well, apparently he had a message for Fox News viewers during an interview he did not too long ago. God, my nose will not stop itching. I need to get a nose hair trimmer, guys. I need it. I need it. I've really been putting it off for too long. Anyway, apparently, Pete Buttigieg is cooking lately. Oof, hate to contradict Zan, but he totally failed Ohio in the toxic waste train crash. What did he do that failed them, though? That's the thing. My understanding is that Pete Buttigieg has actually done a pretty good job as a whole, even if there's been some pretty big, like, disasters that have occurred during his tenure in his position. Like, you can't really, like, blame Biden on, like, October 7th happening, even if it happened during his presidency, for example. And getting us, like, involved in a conflict. Like, I don't think that alone you can really blame on Biden, for example. So I don't know if, like, the toxic train spillage under Buttigieg means it's his fault, because that was the fault of a long building problem of a lack of funding, pay, and particularly accountability for the companies that transport these toxic chemicals. I don't think this was a failure of the Department of Transportation. If I understand, it was a failure of accountability for private companies, right? Like Norfolk Southern was the company, if I remember, and there's no real accountability for them when they do this kind of shit and poison tons of people and ruin entire swaths of land, and that was really the problem there. Much like how PG&E, the Pacific Coast Power Company, has no accountability for having to upgrade their hardware, and so like every fucking rain or dry season, there is a few power lines that get downed or end up popping and exploding out there in the coastal woods and up in the mountains, and it starts a big forest fire and just wipes out acres and acres and acres of forest and mountainous like neighborhoods and stuff, because PG&E has no accountability. Like they can just get away with allowing their infrastructure to start wildfires across the coast every dry season, which is getting longer and more severe because of climate change. So I don't know if that's a Pete problem or if that's a broader legislation problem that might be out of his control. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of these big companies that we rely on for providing basic necessities such as transportation of like goods across the country and transportation of power, like these are things that these companies just have a monopoly on, and such a strong one that there's no accountability for them. Just like Boeing, for example, we've all been looking deep into Boeing lately with the whistleblowers going like, and how there's like no accountability for all the shit that's going wrong with their planes because they're so important. They're companies that are so important. There's really nothing that the government realistically does to punish them for what they fuck up, right? And I don't know if that's Pete's fault. I don't know. It seems like at least all I'm saying is he's got a pretty decent record. Like there's not a lot of obviously bad shit in his background, and on top of that, he's a very good speaker, and he seems like a human being. On top of that, he doesn't come off as like a corporate robotic stooge, if that makes sense. He seems like an actual person. Apparently he went on Fox News recently and cooked. And so let's watch. I've only seen a few clips of this, and I'd like to watch, a more all-encompassing version of this, because my opinion on Pete Buttigieg goes up every time I hear him talk. Let's watch.
Republican strategist Rena Shaw, also with us, CNN political commentator, former Biden White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield. And I would like to say we have shown enormous restraint so far in this broadcast. It's 8:39 a.m., and I don't think we've mentioned the Veep stakes once. I'm ending that restraint right now. They just mentioned it right there, but it took a long time. And Kate, I want to play some sound for you because the contenders were out this weekend, including one who hasn't received quite as much attention, and that's Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg is from Ohio, right? That's a big battleground state. Like that's one we really would like to go blue because it typically goes hard red. Is that one that is Pete Buttigieg from Ohio? Is there a chance we could make that purple or blue? Is that the way? He's from Indiana, my bad. Okay. I thought he was from Ohio. Listen, guys, I'm not going to lie. Ohio, Indiana, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all those states, I've never been to them. And they're like, much like the UK, Europe, or anything outside of America, they're just sort of a blurb or a blur of nothing. Like, it's just all Ohio to me. It's just the homestead states, flyover states, right? They don't matter. I could never be president. The second I say, oh yeah, those flyover states, yeah, they don't fucking matter. The second I say that on TV, it's over.
Buttigieg, who went on Fox where he's very comfortable, and he went on the attack. Listen.
People think that crime is up when crime is down under Joe Biden and crime was up under Donald Trump. Now,
dude, the right-wing media hates Buttigieg. They brought him on Fox News expecting they were going to be able to railroad him, ironically. Instead, he went on and just listed a bunch of inconvenient facts about Biden's presidency that the Republicans had to cope about. Even in the title, they had to copium response to what Pete says. They tried to say, I think the title of Fox News' upload of this is Pete Buttigieg claims lowest crime and best economy in years despite conflicting data. There is no conflicting data. We're seeing record low crime rates and record economic growth under Biden. It's just very inconvenient to acknowledge that, it seems, for a lot of people. Like, as people just really want to hate Biden. They really do. And it's fine if you hate Biden, but it's really interesting that it leads to a disregard or hand-waving of, like, really big accomplishments. It really feels like a lot of the left wants to maintain this perspective that voting blue no matter who is something that's, like, shitty and done, like, despite what you want to do and not something that you should want to do. And that's a really weird perspective to try to uphold.
I don't know how often that gets reported on this network. So if you're watching this at home, do yourself a favor and look up the data.
Well, we invite that.
Great.
So, okay, two-part question here. Number one, do you think there is any realistic shot for Pete Buttigieg, who doesn't really bring a state necessarily with him? And two,
yeah,
the way he goes
big.
about that, the attack rather than defend there, what does that represent in terms of what might be a strategy for the Harris campaign going forward?
Yeah, well, I think there's absolutely a possibility for Secretary Pete, because here's the thing about the VP conversation. Everybody wants to game out the X's and O's of, you know, who can bring what state and what constituency. And obviously the political calculation is part of the discussion. Of course it is. But ultimately the choice is going to be, you know, who is the person that VP Harris feels has the best connection with, trusts, would be, you know, would have as a governing partner,
We're really pushing the line, though, to be honest. Like, God, we're less than 100 days from the election now, and we don't know for sure who Kamala Harris's VP will be. I'm leaning towards Buttigieg. I would like it to be Buttigieg, but he does, like they said, he doesn't really bring a state to the table, so that isn't necessarily the most strategic decision. It seems more likely that she's going to try to bring someone in that is known and well-liked from a battleground state, a purple state that we really need to swing, because that could make the difference in the outcome of the election. It's probably the smartest decision. I know that Shapiro, I know ironic last name, was being looked at. I think that I saw this is, dude, the people calling for Michelle Obama to be the VP are memeing, right? Like, that's a meme, right? Because back when people were calling for Biden to step down, people kept on saying Michelle Obama should take his place, and now they're claiming that she should be the VP, and it's like, does she even want to? What is happening? I sure as hell hope so. Why? Why do you want Michelle Obama to be VP? I get that she was pretty based, I think, as First Lady, but I don't even think she liked being First Lady, so why would she... Why would she want to be VP? I chose to believe it's a joke for my own sanity. I guess so. God, it's so bizarre. People are throwing some weird suggestions out there. Some really unserious suggestions. Not that, like, Michelle Obama would be bad as a VP. I just don't know if she would bring enough to the table strategically to help win.
Have as a reliable, campaign partner, somebody who's going to be able to go out and make the case in an effective and reliable way, which Secretary Pete obviously can. So sometimes I think that the kind of calculation around who has the best elector, who adds the most, electoral benefit, is a little overplayed relative to what's actually happening inside the campaign.
They're not looking at Pennsylvania anymore, and the rally in PA's Inner Hall. No running mate has been unrolled in their home state for multiple decades now. Man, yeah, it really is weird. I don't know who she's gonna pick. I really hope she picks Biden, dude. I really hope Kamala just picks Biden. Straight up, picks Biden to run with her as her VP. If she does that, I will laugh so fucking hard. I would laugh so fucking hard if Biden ends up being her VP. Because at this point, it's starting to look like he might be a good pick. He doesn't bring many swing states to the table, but I don't know. I feel like the number one thing people were complaining about was his age, and besides that, they're happy to vote for someone younger to beat Trump. So who knows? Maybe just Biden stepping back to the VP position and Harris being the one who's the actual president. That could go hard. Who knows? Unironically, that'd piss off the right so much. I'd love it. Yeah. Watch, like, the entire online left cry.
In terms of discussions about who she picks. So I think people should remember that. And for that reason, obviously VP Harris has worked with Secretary Buttigieg in the administration. And of course, as we've all seen many times and just saw yesterday, he's a terrific communicator. In terms of his response there, I mean, it was textbook. It was excellent. He, one thing that he's so great at is, he's always level-headed. He's
really
always calm.
Good at orating. He's really, really good at it. He's like the anti-Biden in that respect, where his speaking skills, I feel, actually force those that disagree with him to admit that he's made a good point, while Biden, even when he's making a good point, kind of stutters through it because he's not good at speaking and he's old. He's really the anti-Joe Biden in regards to speaking skills. Pete Buttigieg, I'm surprised he didn't pull more numbers to the debates because he did really well there too. Zan, talk about the Kentucky man. Who is it from Kentucky they're looking at bringing in as VP? Who is the Kentucky representative they're looking at? Beshear, yeah. Yeah. That could be a good pick. Blue Kentucky would go wild. Holy shit. Could you imagine Blue Kentucky? God damn. Yeah, Andy Beshear here, governor. Fuck. That would be a big, yeah, southerner. Oh, like a southern red state popular governor. Is he popular? Let's look up Andy Beshear's gubernatorial approval ratings. Andy Beshear gubernatorial approval rating. If his state likes him, that's big. The Morning Consult poll shows Beshear has a 67% approval rating with a 28% disapproving, placing him at second place among all governors. Holy shit. Hold on. Wait, this guy might be the one. Holy crap. Has Andy Beshear done any, Let's see what Andy Beshear's been up to lately. What's the biggest, newest story about him? Because he could be the guy, like, legitimately. It might end up being him.
Yeah, VP hopeful Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear will speak to a sold-out crowd here in less than an hour. This comes as the Oklahoma Democratic Party for the DNC cast their votes for the DNC today.
This is what we do in Kentucky.
A Democratic VP hopeful is drumming up support from the Sooner State. Yes. On Thursday, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear will go in front of the Oklahoma Democratic Party as their guest speaker for the Oklahoma Future Fund, a fundraiser for local candidates.
He reiterated this weekend that
Hey, Kamala Harris, you should make me your VP. I promise this will be very good for your campaign.
He wanted to do everything he could to help the Oklahoma.
You can win Florida. I know how to speak to those weirdos over there in the dick of America.
Democratic Party.
Chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, Alicia Andrews, says the shortlister has good odds of snagging the ticket, saying Beshear is successful at working across the aisle.
First and foremost,
I think what gets us our first ever blue Texas is Texas gets tired of Greg Abbott, elects a Democrat, next election cycle, like after 2 Kamala terms, popular Democrat governor of Texas gets picked as VP, and we get first ever blue Texas. That would go fucking crazy. That, I think, is how it'll happen, too. Just don't admit you find her pretty if she's in the same building. Yeah.
he is the governor of a state that is mostly led by Republicans. And in order to become a governor in a state that has a Republican legislature, that means that he has to be a person who can communicate his values and what's important across the aisle.
We're going to help Kamala Harris defeat Donald Trump.
She also said enthusiasm is at an all-time high for Oklahoma Democrats as Vice President Kamala Harris makes her run for presidency. Momentum, Andrews says, will bring out a record number of Democratic voters this election.
Oklahoma hasn't voted for a Democratic president since President Johnson. And I don't see that changing in this election. But what my hope is that Democrats, with this new enthusiasm, that we turn out in record numbers and that we elect more Democrats on the state level and at the local level.
It's pretty important that you vote blue down ballot. It's pretty important. It is really, really vital that you go out, or we don't even need to go out. You can just get your mail-in ballot sent to you. Watch, top VP contender Andy Beshear seen walking dog as Harris interviews potential running mates. Forbes, what? Forbes breaking news. What is this story? This is legitimately a Forbes breaking news video. It's like 40 seconds long. It's called Top VP Contender Andy Beshear seen walking dog as Harris is interviews potential running mates. What? You're just walking his dog. Is that his friend? Is it just him and his buddy walking their dog? You know, I respect him even more, seeing him walk that dog. He loves his pets. I feel like he could have some, like, servant or something walk the dog for him. Instead, he does it himself. Mad respect. Mad respect. A Morning Consult poll shows Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is the most popular Democratic governor in the country. Damn! This is pretty big. After widespread speculation that Kentucky's Democratic governor, Andy Beshear, was in the list of potential running mates for Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of the Democratic National Convention, a new poll found Beshear is the most popular Democratic governor in the country. The Morning Consult poll shows Beshear has a 67% approval rating with 28% disapproving, placing him at second place among all governors. He falls behind Vermont Republican Governor Phil Scott, who has an astounding 81% approval rating. What is Phil Scott doing that's giving him such a high approval rating? What the fuck? We can't give up, Scott Kelly or Governor Scott, Phil Scott, not Scott Kelly, my bad, tells flood-wary Vermont. Vermont seeks federal damage assessment for latest storm. Scott calls latest flooding demoralizing, but says Vermonters can't give up. Oh, is he doing so well right now because his state's going through a natural disaster and, like, people want familiarity and they feel like they need to... is he doing a good job of responding to it? Governor requests federal disaster declaration for July 10 through 11 storm. Okay, so it seems like a lot of that comes from the fact they're going through some natural disaster shit right now. And it's made him really popular. He's woke. Phil Scott is woke? Republican governor? Maybe. I mean, it's Vermont. Vermont's pretty north. But it's also really rural, so could also just be really conservative. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Andy Bashir might be the best pick. What do you guys think? Do we want to run a poll? Do any mods want to start a poll in the chat and see what people think will be the most likely outcome? Who's going to be the most likely pick for VP? It's looking like Andy Bashir might be the pick. I'm really curious what you guys think. Because right now I'm leaning on Andy Bashir because it's just such an obvious choice, right? Hoping he is. Yeah, I think Vermont Republicans aren't like Trumpers, if I remember. It can't not be Andy. Yeah. Look at Mark Kelly. Isn't Mark Kelly, like, awful? Or no, he's cool. He's the astronaut guy. My bad. I was thinking of someone else. I was thinking of, like, that one televangelist dude whose last name is also Kelly. It might be Scott Kelly, who I was thinking of earlier. Okay. Yeah, no, this guy's cool. He's like an astronaut, ex-Navy, all that. Yeah. Dope as hell. He could be a good pick, but the fact that, that Andy Bashir's from a red state, and on top of that is so popular, man, it could make Kentucky go blue. We could get Blue Tucky, dude. That would go crazy. He's had some cringe, but he's both a veteran and an astronaut. Okay, pretty solid. Pretty solid. Pretty hard to shit talk a veteran astronaut, right? Veteran dash astronaut, you know? Is Kentucky a valuable state? It's a red state that we could take away from the right. And he's popular, so that could lead to other states swinging blue as well, right? He's a liked Southern governor, so it could really it could have a big effect on the outcome of the election. Hard to say. Mark Kelly is popular in a swing state. Yeah, he could be a good pick too. I'm excited to see who gets announced as VP. You guys better believe I'll be not the first, but one of the first to be covering it and talking about it. I'm excited to see. Because right now I'm leaning somewhere between Buttigieg and Andy Bashir. Buttigieg would just be cool from a political, like, policy perspective, while Bashir would probably be best from a, strategy perspective, considering his popularity and being from the South. But who knows? Who knows what they'll go for? We'll have to find out. Anyway, if you enjoyed the segment, consider dropping a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon, comment down below. All these things help the channel a ton no matter when, where, or what you're watching. And of course, consider following all my social medias, linked down below in the description, including joining my fan Discord. It's totally free. And I also announce all my new uploads, streams, and host events there as well, including watch parties and gaming events. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you hop right on in. And of course, consider following my social medias and donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website if you haven't already. And you can also support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buying merch if you haven't already and you can afford it. But regardless of how you support me, even if you're just watching and lurking, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. And, yeah, hope to see you again soon.